right, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Fearcast. This is the podcast dedicated to OCD and anxiety spectrum disorders, and getting your life back. I'm your host, Kevin Foss, and I'm a licensed therapist, and I specialize in OCD and anxiety disorders. To no surprise, right? Welcome, everybody, to the Fearcast. This is a question and answer-based podcast where you, the listener, get to send me, the therapist, questions about OCD and anxiety and getting your life back, and all that stuff, all the tagline things that I just said. Anyways, I just said. So this was a fun episode, everybody. Today we get an audio question. So somebody went over. Actually, did they send? They sent it over to Instagram. You can send me a question over at Instagram. If you go over to the Instagrams, I am Fearcast Podcast over there, and send me a DM and record your voice. That will shoot you to the top of the line, and that is what Worry Wart did today. She sent me a message over there, and I listened to it, considered it, and putting it up today. And I was able to rope in my good friend Lauren Rosen to help me tackle this question. So this question has to do with what it's like to live with OCD. What is it like to have the highs and lows and struggle with having a great life and then seemingly having a great life, and then OCD comes in and seemingly makes your life awful, and the question of will life get any better? So I wanted to get someone in who could speak more directly to that lived experience, and Lauren was delightful enough to share some of her time. So she's a frequent, I suppose she's a frequent guest of this podcast. She also has her own podcast. I'll share about that in a minute, but she is going to be at this year's IOCDF, the International OCD Foundation's National Conference. It is going to be held in Florida this year, specifically in Orlando. If you are in the Orlando area, go check it out. It's a great conference, tons of information, tons of activities. It is not just for clinicians. It is for everybody, family members, individuals struggling with OCD, people who are on the front end of things, people who are who are well advanced in the process, broad perspectives on how to treat, how to address, how to live with, how to overcome OCD. You get the idea. Go check it out if you're in the area. Now, if you're going to miss it, as I am missing it this year, there's going to be an online conference, and that's going to be in November. And I'm going to throw my name in the hat and see if some of my talks get accepted. We shall see. But if you're in the Orlando area, go check out Lauren. She's going to have a gaggle of talks. She's a great presenter, and I think you will learn a lot from her, as we are all going to in today's episode. So let me just share a little bit about Lauren, and then we'll get to Worry Wart's question. Lauren Rosen is a psychotherapist and the director of the Center for the Obsessive Mind, an outpatient clinic serving individuals in California, Florida, Utah, Nevada, and Oregon. So many places. Lauren specializes in treating OCD and anxiety disorders and eating disorders, and supports people using mindfulness-based cognitive behavioral therapy, exposure and response prevention, and acceptance and commitment therapy. In addition to her work as a therapist, Lauren co-hosts the Purely OCD podcast and does social media advocacy. So let's get on to my conversation with Lauren Rosen.
Hello. I just wanted to say, firstly, thank you for your podcast. I have learned a lot, and it has been quite helpful. A question that I have for you is as it relates to sort of how to be okay with the lack of peace that you feel, as well as almost an obsession about getting better, or being obsessed that you're not going to get better or feel the way that you used to feel. So a backstory is I'm pretty sure I've gone undiagnosed. Well, I've not ever been officially diagnosed, but with OCD probably my entire life. I definitely was always like a very anxious and worry wart type of child, who now that I've discovered all of these different subsets, that a lot of the things that I would do, such as counting or having to pray right or pray in a certain way or put something in a certain spot, otherwise my family would die, is like OCD. And I just always thought that was just me, and maybe everyone was like that. And when I was in college, I had an experience where all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I had this random thought because I had a dream about this girl that I knew was a lesbian. And we had class together, and she was my friend. And I had a dream that I then became a lesbian, and I completely lost it. The level of anxiety and complete depression that overtook my life for about the next month was unfathomable. But I ended up transferring schools because of something completely separate. Because of all of the busyness of transferring schools and being a college student, I basically didn't have time to think about it. I didn't have money to go to therapy. And I remember just waking up one day and all of the thoughts were gone. And I was like, wow, that's crazy. What a weird experience. And then basically my entire life up until a few months ago, I always thought that was just like a funny experience that maybe everyone goes through in college. And about 2.5-3 months ago, we were out with friends, and someone said something to me that completely just like tripped me out, again, as a friend actually that is a lesbian. And she said something along the lines that she was mad at me that I didn't respond to her text or something. And something about the interaction just freaked me out. And basically the next day I woke up, and it was like all of the thoughts from when I was in college just came pummeling back of like, well, what if you are this? And for about a month, I was just completely anxious and stressed and just everything. And then I finally, out of just desperation, have discovered that there is this thing of OCD that exists that it just was such a relief of like, oh my God, that's exactly what I've always experienced. But now what I'm struggling with is that I worry that because I got over it before and lived for literally 15 plus years of just the most happy, abundant, and stressful times in life, but overall just a completely resilient and strong-minded, happy person who is really confident and very self-assured, to now worrying that like, what if, because now I feel like I've self-diagnosed myself with this, that now I'm obsessed that I'm going to cling to that. And I've been working on doing exposures. I don't have access to be able to go to therapy at this time. But I listen to podcasts such as yours, which again, thank you so much. And also to say I am in the most happiest relationship with an extremely handsome man, someone that I love so much. And I almost feel like this worry of like, this came up because for the first time in my life, I was just so incredibly happy. And then now it's like, this feels like it's robbing my peace. And I just, because the thoughts have definitely decreased, and the anxiety for the most part has gone away, but I do feel as though I don't have that same feeling of just like peace and content. And I just worry that like, am I going to always have this thing in the back of my head when it's like, I know that it's not even what I want. And it's like, it's so silly. And I know that you deal with this all the time. And this is a very rambling note, and I do apologize. And obviously no need to actually get back to me. But I feel like I haven't heard this talked about, especially as it relates to OCD. And also, why would something like this come up when you're actually so happy? And it just feels incredibly frustrating. There's been many stressful things outside of my relationship in life, and I think that probably is what also potentially triggered it. But thanks again.
All right, Lauren Rosen, thank you so much for joining me to offer the lived experience and your perspective as a therapist, as someone who lives most days with OCD. And
what are the other days?
What are the other days?
Yeah.
You're asleep?
I did. I was sick recently and did sleep for the better part of the day. So that's a good point.
How was it?
It was good. I think I definitely still had OCD though.
Oh, okay.
Well, that's arguable. But anyway, the point, thank you. Thank you for having me on. You know, I love talking about you about, oh my gosh.
You can do this. You can. Several people love talking about me, but usually they love talking poorly about me. And if that's how it is, and that's fine. But thank you so much for joining me for this episode. You are one of my favorite people to have on, favorite people to chat with. What people don't know is we booked out some time for us to have this brief conversation, and we squandered all of it by chit-chatting about just life and family and weird stuff.
Correct.
So,
yes.
Anyways, well, we're here to answer Worry Wart's question. By the way, I didn't mention the questioner's name is Worry Wart, which I think
that's
is
the handle.
That's the handle.
Awesome.
Yeah, that's how it's going
that
today. So Worry Wart asked this question, and I wanted to rope someone in who can speak to the lived experience of what it is like to have OCD on a day-to-day basis, and to live with it, and to live in its success, and to live successfully and fully. Because that there can be that, for a lot of folks who are in the trenches, at least from the experience that I've seen working with folks over the years, when it shows up, there's this perception that my life is over. I'll never be happy again. Nothing is good again. And it's just this slog until death. And, from folks that I've spoken with, you included, that just ultimately is not the case. And I just wanted to hear from your perspective, what if you could offer some insight or some advice or guidance to Worry Wart. So you listen to the question. What are some of the things that jumped out to you?
So a couple of things that jumped out to me. The first was this idea that that OCD, the presence of thoughts, takes away your peace, or one's peace, right? Like the person who's struggling. And while I can totally appreciate that, right, that thoughts are upsetting or frustrating sometimes, I actually think the part of the disorder that, it's the disorder part, right? So actually, let me back up a little bit. The reason when you and I were joking earlier that I said that I still had OCD even when I was sleeping for most of the day, and then I kind of corrected myself, is because I don't think of myself as having the disorder part at this point in my life. Because it's not, my life is very full. It's not impaired substantially or significantly by the fact that I have this tendency to want to resolve uncertainty. Yeah, but I do still have that propensity to really want to get to the bottom of things. And I not to go off on too much of a tangent, I promise I'll keep this, sort of with the question, but I actually don't think it's a bad thing. I think that my tendency to be dogged in wanting to answer questions, it's like I'm passionate about things and I'm curious, and I really like to pick things apart. I think that's actually an asset in many parts of my life. So, but if we go back to this idea that OCD, or the thoughts themselves, rather, right? The presence of these thoughts takes away peace. To some extent, yes, in the way that a fly in a room will take away from your level of peace, right? If there is this fly, I had a fly in my office maybe a month or so ago that was massive. This thing was huge. I was really kind of worried about it. I was like, wow, the flies are going to take over. But so this fly, it's buzzing in my face. And if we could compare the reality of my life with and without this ginormous fly, yes, the part of the fly flying in my face was more disruptive than not having the fly in my face. But what would really have been very more disruptive of my peace is if I had gotten up and tried to swat the fly and screamed at the fly and had a whole thing of it. And I was in the middle of session too when this fly showed up. So like it would have been really messy. Mm-hmm. And I think my point in this is that the part of having OCD, the disorder part, the response to the thoughts part, is really what's robbing people of their peace. Right? You can develop peace around all sorts of experiences, including thoughts, including feelings. But being unwilling to have an experience and trying to fix it so intently that you won't stop is essentially what happens with OCD. That is absolutely going to rob you of your peace.
Right.
So when Worry Wart said, how to be okay with the lack of peace, well, we all have to accept that there are things that come up that are going to disturb our peace, just like this fly, OCD or otherwise. Like everyone's had that experience, I'm imagining, at some point in their lives. And I'm not trying to be dismissive. Obviously, as somebody with lived experience, I recognize that comparing a fly being in your face to having constant obsessions, it's not the same thing. And yet, that sort of constant showing up, everyone has to accept some of that in life. It's unavoidable. And if you have this propensity to want to resolve uncertainty, absolutely, you're going to get stuck sometimes wanting, or like having these thoughts and also wanting them to go away. And so part of it is acceptance, right? Like accepting the fact that you are not going to have perfect peace in life.
That fly's going to show up sometimes.
Yes. And one of the things actually to that end, this is the most wandering answer, but I hope that it can be all pulled together.
People have listened to my podcast before, and they've heard yammer. So that's what we're about here.
Well, you and I have we're similar yammerers, but what was I saying? No, I lost it. That's okay. But I think probably like the fly, that there is a fair amount of just accepting. Worry Wart was saying that, and for experience in the years prior to these thoughts resurfacing, that there was this time of like bliss.
Yeah,
and
peace. And
she did acknowledge that there were moments that were more or less challenging, but that there seems to be this demarcation of, and then my peace was interrupted. And I would argue that in the experience prior to the peace being interrupted, there were probably other things that were interrupting the peace. It wasn't this thing, right? And so if you're going to compare life with and without the obsession, right? You're like, well, I had that particular piece in those moments before, and now I don't have that piece because these thoughts are here. But the fly lives, right? There's going to be something that's going to interrupt your peace regardless. And if the options are accept the interruption or resist the interruption, we know that resisting the interruption is going to make it 1,000 times worse. Like that's what's really going to take away from your peace. That's the trying to resolve it. So there's this element of accepting the fact that here we are, like there are going to be things that interrupt our peace, and also making the choice not to make it worse by trying to get perfect peace.
I think that's beautifully said. And there's, for someone who's in that, active phase of treatment, it can feel like maybe that fly isn't a fly. It's this pterodactyl that happens to be in the room. Right. It sounds like, through treatment, through work, and also and also that shift in perspective to view this as not only through your perspective, but through your response to it. treat it as if it is a fly, as if it is a distraction. And it is. And I've had those flies in my office before. I've had, gosh, there was every Thursday at my office, in my right outside my window, there's a gardener. It happened yesterday. It was obnoxious.
Yeah.
But what am I going to do?
Right.
I'm going to keep going.
Yeah, you're not going to get up and yell at the guy because that's really going to disturb your peace.
It sure is. And
yeah,
we adapt. It's there, it's obnoxious, and then we keep going.
Right. And I think actually one thing that I want to explore maybe a little bit more with you on Worry Wart's behalf is that you can, like, that idea that you can develop peace with anything. I'm not saying you should. Like, there are things that you can affect or you can change. Thoughts and feelings just aren't among the things that we can actively control. So trying to do so doesn't make sense. But if there are two ways at peace, one is to eradicate everything that is trying to get in the way of peace, which, as we're establishing, doesn't work. But you also can develop a more peaceful relationship with the experiences that you're having and how you're responding to them. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I've, if you're asking me, I don't know if you are. It sounds like there's a certain element of in life of being okay with something that you are not okay with.
Yeah.
Conceptually, we cannot be okay with certain things, and yet we can live our life as if we are going to, quote, be okay with it. We are being, in our action, okay with it, in that we are not okay with it. That can be a medical health thing, right? It can be chaos in the world. There's a lot of nonsense going on in the world, and yet I'm not okay with. I give this example sometimes: child trafficking. I'm not okay with it.
No.
But I also can't let it overturn every moment of my life. And in essence, I am living as if I am, quote, okay with it. But I'm not okay with it. But if every moment, this is a very weird example. Lauren is giving me a very concerned face, like,
am I?
she's going, Kevin's okay with child trafficking. That's weird.
Wow, he's jumping the shark here. It's happening.
About me. But pick a thing.
I am with you. So I mean, there's an acceptance of its existence.
Yes.
Right. And if you don't accept that fact, then your whole life is going to be focused on that. And look, I actually think it's great if you dedicate your life to ending child trafficking. Like, that's a very
absolutely
fabulous way to like make a career for yourself. Like, I'm all about that. And yet,
I hope people hear that I am supporting people eradicating child trafficking.
Oh my God, Kevin.
Should I keep?
I really hope they're hearing that.
Okay. Go ahead.
But the idea of like spending every single waking moment trying to like focus on that and trying to end it, it's not actually going to end it, unfortunately, right? Because and like, this sounds like a very fatalistic way of viewing it, but I also think that you end up not living your life at all.
Yeah, but and also to continue on with this very now uncomfortable metaphor is, I pick child trafficking because pick any of the other things that are going on in the world that you and I can't stand.
Yeah.
But if we focus on one, we can't focus. We can't reasonably focus on all of them. And I think this is a reality for all of us, is that we can't focus on all the injustices in life. And there could be an argument that mental health is an injustice to you. And we can only put our energy into so many things. So we find a way to live our life with it. This is very weird. Let's bring it back to something reasonable. So back to accepting.
Accepting.
It's accepting that conceptually we may not be okay with it, but what would it mean to be okay with it? Because we know to not be okay with it means that we fight it. It means that we put energy towards it. It means that we think about it. It means that we put energy and resources towards it to try to eliminate it. That's not being okay with something. That would be the struggle switch if we're talking ACT language.
Yeah.
But if we are talking, but then to be okay with it, we're not doing all those things.
Right. Or we're doing those things to a certain extent.
To a reasonable and self-consistent, egocentric way.
Correct. Right. That's exactly right. And I think actually, so your analogy of like being okay with something that you're not okay with. The lens I tend to view that through is through the lens of mindfulness.
Yeah.
And so this practice of non-judgment. So the idea that it's sort of irrelevant as to whether or not you like the experience, it's there. So can you just acknowledge that it's there? You can also acknowledge that you're like, my preference would be this. Mm-hmm. But again, your preference, again, not to be rude, but it kind of doesn't matter because this is the way that it is right now, and you cannot directly change it.
Right.
So you can practice this non-judgment of like, okay, I'm having this experience. Oh, okay. I'm also noticing that I'm judging this experience. Oh, I'm noticing that I would prefer that this experience would go away. Interesting. Okay. Well, I'm just going to come back to what's actually happening in my life right now.
Yeah. And I think you said it well. I think you said something to the effect of, we can certainly have our preferences with what it is that we would like. And it's fine. I would like it to be that way. And it may be that way at some point or some points.
Yeah.
But until then, we're at this. So we got to wait it out and adapt to that which we're in.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And we find that way. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I appreciate the example of sort of like a physical malady. Like, let's say you break your leg. Right? I think we can all agree that we would all prefer probably most people can agree that they prefer not to have a broken leg.
I would prefer that as well.
I would. Yeah. So, and yet if you have a broken leg, railing against the fact that you have a broken leg is not going to take the broken leg away. It's going to, no, you're still going to have a broken leg. And now you're pissed. Like you're essentially feeding the anger around the fact that you have this broken leg.
Right.
You're wishing for something else and you're demeaning what could be of this moment.
Right.
So if your options are live your best life with the broken leg, or tell yourself a story about how much it sucks that you have the broken leg for the duration of the time the leg is broken. Mm-hmm. I'm gonna pick the first.
You got this.
Thanks. Yeah. Thanks for the moral support, Kevin. We can word so well. I would pick the first one every time. Mm-hmm. Every time. Mm-hmm. Because life is it's short, and I'd like to get as much out of it as I can.
Right. And our happiness fluctuates.
Yes.
We go through seasons of happiness. We go through seasons of frustration. We go through seasons of just meh. And that's kind of life. And then we cycle back through a lot of those things. And it's easy to be pissed off that you're not feeling good all the time. Right.
Yeah.
And we feel justified.
Sure.
But I think there's an element then of saying it's not great right now. Like when, if someone's in the, if Worry Wart is in the throes of her anxiety, it returns. It sucks. I don't want her to have that. And yet it will change. It will get better. It will get worse. But it will happen.
It'll happen in in a short period too. And I think part of recovery is recognizing that it cycles through much more quickly than we think it does. If we're paying attention, it's like the fact that this thought hits you means that there was a period of time where it wasn't front. Yes, exactly. It wasn't front and center. And so that may be a shorter period of time than you would like. Well, but it was only 20 seconds. Like, yeah, but it's not constant. Our feelings are constantly changing. We think that we're different from babies and little kids, but we're really not that different when it comes to emotions. And if you watch a baby, they will cycle through like 50 different emotions in 20 seconds. And I think that's, if we don't fight our feelings, it has that tendency, we have that tendency too, that it just sort of shifts and it's like, oh, I feel really nice. Like, I like this feeling. I'm happy right now. Or, oh, I'm sad and I'm kind of bummed about this. But that's the thing. The acceptance of it sort of allows them to flow instead of like, well, nope, this is not the right one. So I'm going to really hyper focus on it. I'm trying to get rid of it. It just actually has the opposite effect. It makes it stay around longer because you're so fixated on it, and nothing but 0% of that feeling will do.
I know we've got stuff going on today, so I should probably release you back to the wild. I want to chat about this for hours and hours and hours. What guidance, or what if you could drop some encouragement love bombs on Worry Wart.
You're getting warm and fuzzy, Kevin. I like it.
Sorry.
Love bombs.
If you could tell her how to suck it up better.
Oh God, no. Okay. I liked where you were going.
All right, sorry. Okay, let's go back to. Okay, if you could offer some encouragement and support to Worry Wart, what do you suppose you would say to her to help her through kind of those hard times?
First of all, I'm sorry. It is hard. It's hard. And life is hard. Like it just is. And I also can say that having lived with lots and lots and lots of anxious thoughts for a long time and lots of feelings, that if you start to relate to them differently, your life can change in really spectacular ways. My life is much better on the whole for having gone through the experience of grappling with OCD. It would not have been my choice. And I wouldn't wish it on somebody. And yet I know that I am better at navigating the presence of thoughts and feelings, and that they interfere with my life less. Like I have a life that really reflects the kind of person that I want to be the vast majority of the time these days. It's not 100% and I'm imperfect, right? But like, I'm certainly moving toward the life that I have always wanted, just in terms of who I want to be and how I want to show up. So it's possible. I think it's my long-winded way of saying that when you're in it, it's like the only way out of this is for these thoughts and these feelings to go away. It's the only way for me to get peace back. And you're telling me to accept it? Like, fight me. That's my nice way of saying it. I almost said a different thing, but I'm not going to. And what's that? Yeah, exactly. So, but I think that if you just kind of try, if you're like, okay, these people are suggesting that I try and practice being non-judgmental of my thoughts and feelings and accepting them. And that maybe I can have a varied experience that includes anxiety and other things, and that it's going to change. Like I wouldn't have believed it. I didn't believe it. I remember being told, and I was like, yeah, prove it to me. Right. Like it took me a very long time in treatment to get around. I was like, but what if I never get better? And what if this isn't OCD? So I feel all that.
Right.
But I think that if you take that leap, a lot of things are possible that when you're in the thick of it, you can't see. You think that your experience of this thing that we're talking about accepting is always going to be the same. But if you accept it, your experience of it changes, right? If you learn to dance with it, then you're no longer at its mercy. And I think that it's a hard thing to try to explain that sort of paradigm shift. But I've watched it happen for myself and develop and deepen over the years. I've seen it happen for so many people now. I've been fortunate to be on other people's journeys with them and to support them in finding that. So if there's one piece of hope I can bring, it's that peace is possible. Absolutely. But you have to learn how to develop peace with what's coming up. That's how you cultivate peace. It's not by having nothing disturbing your peace in the environment around you. Actually, it's really funny. I have to say this. I have a mug that I've had for probably like 10 to 15 years. And it's a quote about peace. And it says something like this. It's like, peace is not to be like not unperturbed by anything in surrounding you. It's to have all of those things happening and still, I think it says something that's a little bit like unhelpful, like to have peace in your heart, which just strikes me as a platitude that's not particularly instructive. But I think what's more helpful is to say like to meet whatever is coming at you with equanimity, right? That's peace. And that's a lasting peace that isn't contingent upon all of these things outside of our control that are constantly ebbing and flowing.
I think that's perfectly well said.
Well, thank you. I'm sorry, Worry Wart. I just want to say that too. I'm sorry. It's tough.
And that there, on the other end of it, there is still happiness and joy and love and relationship and success and opportunity to be had on the other end of it.
Yes.
And you and a number of the other people that you and I know are examples of that.
Yeah.
And trust me, go to Instagram. It's full of people who want to talk about how they've had success.
Yeah, that's true.
Find a gaggle of IOCDF advocates.
They will tell you about how their lives have changed.
Right.
And there are lots of advocates, all over the place.
Is there an IOCDF It Gets Better hashtag yet?
I don't know.
Let's talk to Tronston about this.
Oh my gosh, can I share something with you that really moved me? Actually, speaking of Instagram.
Is it appropriate for the podcast?
I don't know.
Okay.
Here. Why don't we could record something that we could, and then we could ignore it if you like.
Okay.
It's like one of the more profoundly beautiful things I've ever heard.
All right. Lay it on me, then. Let's get out of here.
Okay. Good.
She's currently filming Theater of the Mind. She's scouring the internet. It looks very much like a Minority Report. If you've all seen that.
Oh, okay.
She's doing the Tom Cruise thing from that. Doing the hand things. Shifting, moving, projecting, minimizing, enlarging, smallering.
Smallering.
These are words. I word good.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
My mother was an English teacher. She's ashamed of me.
Is she?
I think she's fine with me.
All right. So I will say that I'm going to read the whole thing.
Read it.
It's going to take at least 10 minutes for us to get through this. Are you okay with that, Kevin?
Is it actually 10 minutes? This is long.
No, I just mean like it's going to take 10 minutes for us to unpack this.
Okay. We'll see what we can do.
You have to go. You just tell me. So this is it's an advocate who is on Instagram. And it says, this time of year is always a little tough for me, but today is especially tender. Not a lot of people know, although I do not hide it. But a year ago today, April 29th, 2023, I tried to take my own life. While I was being treated at one of the best psychiatric institutions in the world, I still made the choice and had the chance to try and end my own world. I'm not proud of this, but I'm also not ashamed. I'm not sharing this to get pity or sympathy or because I think I'm special. Actually, quite the opposite. I'm most definitely not special for having suffered, for having a sickness, a sadness that so many people try to silence or sweep under the rug. Oh, hold on. Damn it. So many of my friends, my favorite people, they have shared in this struggle, and none of us deserve to have to fight so hard simply to stay. I'm not special for my sadness, and I'm not unique or marvelous for surviving. I had a failed attempt, and I'm grateful I'm still here. But there is no meaning or reason why I'm here and others are not. Shortly after my failed attempt, someone I cared for had a successful attempt. And to say that there is a reason I survived implies there is a reason that they did not. Both of our lives matter, but the truth is there is no meaning to my existence. There is no reason why I blew out my birthday candles this year and my friend did not. So I try to find moments of meaning and create my own reasons for surviving, for choosing to stay, because it is a choice and I'm committed to making that choice every day. But it is one that I make every morning I wake up and every night I fall asleep. Some days that choice is simple. I barely even notice I made it. Other days it takes a lot more work. When I've sought treatment for my suicidal ideation, depression, OCD, PTSD, people are so quick to say it gets better. This is what made me think.
Oh, there you go.
How ignorant. Wait, what were you going to say?
I was very quick to say it, and then you're about to say...
How ignorant. Yeah, I want to tell them.
Okay.
Sorry, Kev.
I heard it.
But hear me out, because I've said it before too. No, there's no judgment, but I think it's profound what she says here.
Okay.
How ignorant, I want to tell them. What a lie. What dangerous rhetoric to preach to a vulnerable population. To say things get better implies that there is a definitive end to suffering, to sadness, to mental illness, when it is always an evolution. It is a process, not an event. Going to the hospital was not a light I could switch or a coin I could flip from bad to better, from hurt to healed, from sick to well. The hospital was not a hallway I walked through to get to the other side. It is a chrysalis, a time of darkness that led to change, rebirth, my life taking new shape, finding the courage to make the commitment to stay. For me, there is no other side of a suicide attempt, of institutionalization, of witnessing the unnecessary suffering of my peers, my friends, my people who made me feel like the baddest bitch when I was able to brush my teeth. There is no other side. There is only forward. There is no better. There is simply more. There will be more good days. There will be more bad days. There will be more new favorite songs. There will be more grief. There will be more love. There will be more loss. We all deserve more, but more is not one note, one color, one flavor. I made the choice a year ago today to stay, to fight for more laughter, more stories, more tears, more mistakes, more moments, so many moments that I almost missed, and more time. More time to be I'm going to edit this, screw up, to choose to continue, to know I deserve more, because my friends, every human I met in the hospital, they all deserve more. So please be gentle with yourself wherever you are in your journey with the pain or your relationship with your brain. You're still here. What a badass you are. I'm so glad you exist. There is so much more I could say on all of this, but for now, I hope you choose tomorrow. I hope you choose more. So, like I said, I think it's one of the more profound things that I've seen on Instagram. It's really vulnerable and very, very raw. But what I really appreciate about this idea is like this idea that it gets better, or that we're chasing some period in which there is only good and happiness, right? That's the illusion, like the piece that we were talking about initially, right? That like there's a time where there's no problems. That the idea that exists leaves people chasing something that is a total illusion.
Like it's a destination.
Exactly. And if you view it as more, but that it's more of all of the color scheme. Like you don't get one color, right? You get the whole rainbow, like it or not, but you do get more, and you can actually learn to savor all of the more, right? That looking at it from that vantage point, I think is really central to recovery. I know it has been to mine. I thought she just did a stand-up job of articulating that. So anyway.
And this will also be my plug for everyone to go see Inside Out too.
Oh, which I still want to see. I'm really excited about it.
You have not seen it from the first time that you and I talked about it on Tuesday, and then you didn't see it after I talked about it earlier today.
I want to be clear. It's Friday. Kevin and I talked about it for the first time 3 days ago, Tuesday. I have a 10-month-old. Also, the last time he talked to me about it was at the beginning of this recording, probably before the recording. But yeah, so I didn't have time. This is unacceptable. Please.
And the reason I make that that comment is there is something in the movie related to this concept of accepting all of it, and that we get all of it, including the bad stuff, the quote bad stuff, the stuff that we think that we don't want, but we get it along with all the other stuff. That's good. That means we need to be a whole person with all the things.
Totally.
And that's what we should be and are fighting for, is all of it.
Yes.
So beautiful.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure to talk to you, Kevin.
Same seas.
You're the Ron Swanson to my Leslie Knope, man.
Is it the mustache that's doing it? People don't know. I'm growing it out again, and the horns, the curls are a little out of hand. My daughter calls me the mustachioed man, but yes, it is. It's a pleasure chatting with you, and I'll let you go to get back to your adorable child, and then get back to my adorable children's, and we'll meet up again.
We shall. I hope so.
All right. Well, you have a wonderful day.
You too. Good day, sir.
Good day to you. Thank you for listening to the Fearcast. If you would like your question answered on a future episode, please click on the Submit a Question link at fearcastpodcast.com. If you would like your question answered sooner, please send me a recording of your question to questions@fearcastpodcast.com, or by sending me an audio message through Instagram by DMing me at fearcastpodcast on Instagram. If you like the Fearcast, please write a review on your podcast platform of choice. Please remember that the Fearcast is not a substitute for psychotherapy. If you need a little bit of help in your recovery, please go over to fearcastpodcast.com and click on the Find Help link, and there's going to be some information for you there. So until next time, take a risk, challenge yourself, and don't take your brain too seriously.